I will call to order the Fishers Planning Commission for June. I do ask that everyone please rise as we state our Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Will the secretary call the roll, please?
Mr. Stewart, Mr. Block, Mr. Fain,
Here.
Ms. Logan,
Here.
Mr. Peterson,
Here.
Mr. Moulter,
Here.
Mr. Nelson,
Here.
Mr. DeReamer,
Present.
Mr. Richards,
Here.
and Mr. Harling.
Here, we do have quorum to conduct tonight's business. There are 8 members. It does take 6 members for any action to move, to have an action.
Correct. And I would like to make just a general announcement tonight. Tonight's meeting is being recorded. It's not live from the city's website, but it is being recorded live, and after tomorrow, there will be a link on the city's website for anyone who wants to view it or share after today. It will be available tomorrow online.
Thank you, sir. Approval of the previous minutes. Any questions, comments, or motion?
Motion to approve. Second.
I have a motion. I have a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed or abstained? Motion carries. As you can clearly see, we have a large crowd this evening, and we have a large agenda of many items that we need to be able to get through. We do have time limits that the commission does put in place for evenings such as this. At the beginning of each row, there is a copy or two, and there's a few extra copies up here detailing the time limits available. Those making a presentation will be limited to 15 minutes. And then during the public hearing, if you're an attorney hired to represent a group, you will be given 5 minutes. Otherwise, 2 minutes for any individual, and we'll give you a polite little, your time is up when you hit that. What we will also, we'll do a few other things to help so that we can make sure that we hear what we need to hear, and those in favor and those in support will get noticed, and to try to get this moving forward. So our first agenda item and our second will be heard together, but they will be voted upon separately. The second one being contingent upon city council, any city council decision, so if so inclined. So case PR 170516 and PP 170230.
Good evening. My name is Taylor Navarre. I'm a planner here with the Planning and Zoning Department. The items before you tonight, we've got 2 of them, as you noted. One is the Gray Eagle PUD text amendment, and the other is the primary plat of one of the parcels as it relates to I-Town Church. So, as was noted, both items will be presented together. However, they will be voted on separately. So getting off, the Gray Eagle PUD is a developed residential area off of East 126th Street and Brook School Road that was approved in 2000. The cases before you tonight are in regards to the northwestern portion of the PUD as it pertains to parcel 9 of the text of the PUD. This is kind of a zoomed in shot of the current state there. The Gray Eagle Golf Course operates currently on this parcel, as well as the golf course clubhouse and driving range. The primary plat as part of this, we'll present that first. It's a little bit more straightforward than the text amendment. The plat itself is subdividing parcel 9 of the PUD into a separate lot, approximately 27 acres in size. The parcel It does meet all the development standards and requirements of the PUD and the city's Unified Development Ordinance, the UDO, and no waivers are being sought as part of this primary plat. It should be noted that the plans were revised. The original plan had 2 lots, one kind of around the existing clubhouse, so to speak, and it was revised to just be 1 lot to address some concerns that were brought about with the possible use and or sale with that second lot. It was kind of cleaned up to just be 1 lot out there. It should be said, though, that the primary plat is not tied to the future use. So while it's somewhat related in the scheme of things, it's not directly correlated to the text amendment here. So as you're aware, by state requirements, the Planning Commission is required to approve the primary plat, seeing that it does meet all of the development standards and requirements of the ordinance. And again, that will be voted on separately. So getting to the text amendment portion of the project, this image shows in red, kind of highlighting that subdivided portion of parcel 9 of the PUD. The parcel 9 of the PUD only allows golf course and golf academy according to the language in the Gray Eagle ordinance. Any other use would have to go through the text amendment process and public hearing and everything that we're going through tonight to allow anything other than the golf course and golf academy, essentially the driving range. The proposed use on the property is place of worship, which is a church, and its related uses. And again, this would only be on this portion highlighted on this map that would be subdivided. Right off the bat, just some high-level concerns that we've received in regards to how the use affects the 2040 comprehensive plan and traffic concerns. The Fisher's 2040 plan that was adopted last year has this area designated as open space. However, this specific property was not discussed in detail as open space. It was just kind of essentially designated because it was an existing golf course. And in terms of traffic, proposed use of a place of worship, generally, most of the traffic takes place on the weekends and should not typically interfere with the Monday through Friday traffic that's generated along 126th Street and Brooks School Road there. So getting into some of the specifics of the proposed text amendment, here we have the concept plan as part of the text amendment ordinance for the proposed I-Town Church. There you can see a new church building in the center of the newly created parcel, as well as the existing clubhouse structure that is going to be there as well as the golf course. To the east there would build a new clubhouse, and the intent is to have construction of that go along with the construction of the I-Town Church building. And then once the clubhouse is constructed, it would move operations to that new building, and I-Town Church would then take over the use of the existing clubhouse. And we'll get to a little bit of that language a little bit later on. One of the areas of the text amendment is in regards to the impervious surface. The standard currently is a maximum of 35% impervious surface area allowed on the parcel. The text amendment is proposing 75%, and that is fairly consistent with church developments to take into account the footprint of all buildings on the site, as well as all the parking and drive areas. Another portion of the amendment is the landscaping plan, the perimeter landscaping plan. As you can see here, the property does abut a neighborhood Greystone to the south, where there is some existing tree line and fencing, as well as some landscaping. This perimeter landscaping plan allows the new plantings to coincide with the 50-foot gas easement that is shown on the plan with the dotted lines, kind of runs through the property diagonally. The landscaping will all take place there. That is similar to the UDO's requirements for a small size buffer yard. And the intent there is to kind of buffer the parking and drive areas from the nearby residential neighborhood. The architectural standards of the text amendment state that all buildings, new and existing, shall comply with the UDO's architectural standards with a couple of amendments. Specifically on the church's property, no vinyl siding will be permitted, as well as a couple amendments in regards to the pitch of the roof and the addition of a flat roof with some architectural additions on there. So the concept plan highlighted on the screen there is just that, a concept plan. It's kind of just a rough idea of what the church would propose. Staff will continue to work with the petitioner to kind of iron out the details and make sure that the architecture is in line with staff and Plan Commission and City Council's recommendations there. So to go along with the rest of the text amendment in terms of the golf course, here we've got the proposed concept plan of the golf course clubhouse that would be rebuilt, again, at the same time and same time frame as the I-Town Church building would be constructed. As part of the text amendment, the Gray Eagle Golf Course property owners are committing to constructing that new clubhouse within 2 years of the sale of the property to the church. And as a way to address some of the City Council's concerns with the viability of the golf course remaining without a driving range and some of those other amenities, they have addressed a couple things in the amendment as far as the size and use of the new clubhouse, the parking areas that they would offer, as well as some of the warm-up amenities as a pitching green and putting green, and outdoor hitting stations with practice nets and indoor golf simulators. So along with that, the golf course is also committed to establishing an escrow account and depositing funds in there for the city to use as kind of to go along with their deadlines for construction, to make sure that they do construct that clubhouse within the 2 years that's stated in the commitments. And those funds would then be, the city would use those as a penalty should the case arise. And again, the city and our legal staff are continuing to iron out some of those details and the terms and conditions of that language as it pertains to the timeline of everything. So with that, staff feels that the petitioner has addressed a lot of our concerns and City Council's concerns with this updated text amendment, and we would recommend that the Plan Commission recommend a favorable recommendation to the City Council for second and third reading. So I'll hand it over to the petitioner, but after that I'll be happy to answer any questions you guys might have.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. President, members of the Planning Commission. For the record, my name is Steve Hardin. I've lived in the Fishers-Geist area for about 25 years, the last 13 years of it in the Gray Eagle neighborhood on the 4th hole. My family and I are really blessed to be able to worship at I-Town Church, and I was very thankful to be asked to serve on their building committee as the church looked for a new permanent home here in the Fishers area. On that building committee with me, which was led by Pastor Dave Summerall, were Rich Block, Adam Gillette, Dave Stepworth, Doug Kistler, and Mason McDonald, a number of whom you might get to meet tonight and hear from during their 2 minutes that they will get. In our opening presentation, you'll hear from Jake Baird, one of the pastors at I-Town, who will talk about the positive impact that I-Town Church has had in our community. And when we talk about land use, that's what we're here to talk about tonight, obviously. One of the factors that's always relevant is this use a good use for the community? Is it going to make a positive impact? And will it help change lives and make our city better for being here? and I, for one, believe it will. And I think you'll hear a little bit from Jake Baird about the vision that I-Town Church has, how they came here to Fishers, and what the plans for the future are. Secondly, you'll hear a little bit tonight about the neighbor outreach that the church undertook in moving forward with this project. Initially, the advice was there was no need to do a text amendment. We just needed to file a plat, and that's how they began the process. They learned midway that they needed to come through to do the text amendment, and the church embraced that, as they do everything, and said, well, let's move forward and try to do that in the best way that we can. The church held a neighbor meeting at the church on April 27th, which was very well attended. Offered at that time to meet with any of the neighbors that were there at the meeting that would like to have the church walk their property lines, recognizing that people view zoning and planning from their front porch and their back porch. So on May 2nd, the I-Town Church team met with a number of the Gray Eagle neighbors and walked their property lines, talked about the lights that currently shine into their backyards from the driving range that will not be shining any longer, and also talked about the details that they had and the thoughts that they had from their experiences. And then on May 6th, the I-Town team met with the neighbors at Greystone and again walked their property lines, learned some new information, and gained some of their insights and concerns and comments that they had. Follow-up meetings with the Greystone property owners at their properties were conducted on May 13th and May 15th, and I won't bore you with all the numerous calls and emails and texts that continued to go through the process with the neighbors. Finally, Dave Stepworth will come up during our opening presentation after Jake, and he will walk you through the responsiveness, hopefully, that the Plan Commission will see that the church has given to those comments from the neighbors. You'll hopefully get a chance to see the plans that were originally proposed by the church, plans that were proposed and approved by the city for the relocation of the golf course with parking lots immediately adjacent to the Greystone neighborhood. And then you'll see what the amount of open space that's been preserved, the additional landscaping and mounding that's been provided, and hopefully some pretty good consideration that's been provided to those questions. Finally, we also heard from Taylor, who gave the input from City Council, where most of the comments there were what can be done to provide and ensure the strongest ability for the long-term viability of the golf course. And you see in your text amendment, again, that's not I-Town Church's role there. The golf course owners, the Thompsons and Dave Compton, have been terrific in working with the city to come up with those commitments that you see in the ordinance, and Mr. Compton is here tonight if you had any questions about that. With that, I'm going to ask Jake Baird if you'd like to come up, introduce yourself, and give a short commentary on the vision of I-Town Church.
Would you like us to give you how much time is left on for each person? How much time do we have left? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hardin. Thank you, Planning Commission and City staff. It's an honor to be here today and representing our church. My name is Jake Baird, as Mr. Hardin said, and I have had the privilege of being a part of I-Town Church really since the beginning, about 7 years ago. And like many of the Fishers residents that are here tonight, I was immediately impacted by the love and the compassion of I-Town and their pastors, Pastor Dave and Kate. And I now serve as one of the associate pastors for I-Town, and besides being a husband and a father, I count it the greatest honor of my life to be able to serve our community. I want to take just a few short moments, the few moments that I have, to tell you a little bit about the journey that we've gone on as a church. And in 2010, Pastor Dave and Kate Summerall felt called by God to move back to Dave's home state of Indiana in order to plant a life-giving church. And really their vision was to come alongside the other great churches in the community and continue to spread the love of Jesus to the people here. In August of 2010, they were able to realize this dream when they launched their first public service at Riverside Intermediate School here in Fishers. We spent 2 years there in a portable setup and tear down situation, and it was a lot of hard work. Many of the people here tonight were a part of that. But marriages were being restored, children were being freed from drugs, students getting off of drugs and alcohol, and so the difference that we saw happening in the church really made it worth all of the hard work. And after 2 years of being at Riverside, we were approached by the leadership of Northeast Community Church, a church in Fishers. And after Pastor Dave and Kate met with their board and shared the vision of I-Town, Northeast made a decision to dissolve their church and join I-Town. And this gave us an opportunity to lease their facility on 126th Street, where we currently are now, and this serves as our Fishers headquarters. So we're here because we still are currently leasing this facility, and we're looking for a permanent place to call home. We believe that this piece of property at 126th and Brooks School is strategically located for us. Of course, as you all know, it is located in the center of Fishers geographically, making it easily accessible to the Fishers residents who'd like to attend. It's also directly between Fishers High School and Hamilton Southeastern High School, where many of our students attend school. Planning Commission and city staff, as you can see, we do have several hundred of our church members here today, and they actually represent thousands who attend our church in Fishers. And so as I close, I would just like to ask anyone who's here today that attends I-Town and also is a resident of Fishers to just stand and show your support for the church. Would you please stand with me? City Planning Commission, it's been an honor to stand before you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. We have how much time left? Ma'am? 8 more minutes.
Very good, thank you. Next up, Dave Stepworth is going to walk you through the plan and the revisions that have been made in response to the comments we've received.
Members of the Planning Commission, I'm Dave Stepworth. I live at 10745 Sandkey Circle, unfortunately in Indianapolis by only 1,000 feet. Had I known Fishers was going to annex part of the area we were very near, we would have chosen that. I am a registered professional engineer and a registered professional land surveyor in the state of Indiana. I have the distinct privilege of being selected to be the Secretary-Treasurer of the Board of Trustees of I-Town Church, which is probably my crown jewel in life. As well as I am a member of the Land Search Committee and the Building Committee and also the civil engineer for the project. So it's like I've got quite a few different things going on, and I've been really pleased and blessed to be part of such a great project. My dad bought the office at 9940 Allisonville Road back in 1971, so I haven't lived here, but I've certainly had a business here, and when we needed to expand, right at the height of the recession, I bought a parcel of land at 7965 East 106th Street, and my only instruction to the realtor was, let's stay in Fishers. My wife and I started attending I-Town Church in 2013, and we were asked to join our son at the church. And we were really happy at another church here in town that was very successful. It was a very large church. And at the time, the average weekly attendance was 350 people. And I said, well, there's our small church again. But I had to really look hard to find somebody in their late 50s. And as I can test, there's quite a few more now in their latter years. Many life-changing stories can be told, and I can tell you from experience and personal friendships that I have that my immediate concern was where we were going to worship, is I wanted to worship with my extended family. And the young people, you hear a lot of negative press around, and I'll have you look at the young people, and as I've told many, many people, the next generation is going to be okay. It is my desire and major thrust at my point in my life to be helping with I-Town's ministry, not to change it, but to help it and aid in their direction. I now have 3 grandchildren who I hope will also be blessed that go to I-Town. I need to tell you, we've been looking for ground for 4 years, and we looked at every parcel that we could find that was for sale. I have many, many developer clients that we put the word out that we were looking for land, and we would take a look at anything. We looked at Marsh parking lots or supermarkets, but I felt like the parking was too constricted. We had a meeting last August, and this is why I need to clear up a rumor. The building committee met, land selection committee, and I'm not sure who asked who knew R.N. Thompson. Adam Gillette and I raised our hands, and within 1 hour we had a lunch scheduled with R.N. Thompson, who I've known for 40 years and greatly admire because he's been on a lot of our jobs that we've done engineering for. We had a very long lunch, and Adam and I got to promote I-Town Church and we were going to originally ask for assistance in helping us find ground. Well, to make a long story short, a meeting that afternoon with their two sons at Ironwood, and Bob says, I want to come see what I-Town's about. So I met him at church that next Saturday and introduced him to Pastor Dave between services, and Bob, with a big grin, said, we need to build I-Town Church, your next home on my property. And that started this whole thing. So we approached the Thompsons, not the other way around. And then originally, this was a very tight, secretive group with Adam and myself involved, and Dave. In fact, the other pastors didn't really know what we were doing, because if things were leaked out, it seemed like our pieces of ground were taken from us and developers would show interest. This first drawing shows a drawing that Thompson sent us on how they thought a church could work in this piece of ground. And I felt like all along that it was going to put too much infrastructure up on the south property line of ours and crowd the neighbors, because we would have to cross the gas line easement at two places, and the parking didn't flow right. I was concerned about not having enough ground for drainage. So we had Dave, Pastor Dave said, let's try to get more ground. So this drawing basically came out of the approved drawing for the clubhouse. So that's basically a similar design. Then once we got the go-ahead for this is where the clubhouse was approved to be. There's some parking here crossing the gas line easement, and then there's parking on the other side. So it kind of relates to how they envisioned the church would take the parcel. Immediately when Dave gave us the go-ahead to buy more ground, it was then determined that we could live with a site that shows the external parking, or the external drive connecting 126th and Brook School, and we felt like there's got to be some way to screen and go over the minimums, and I feel like I'm being rushed because of the 15 minutes. This one shows that we've, as a third revision, we angled the southern entrance, and then you'll see some plantings and a mound, which was required to be 3 feet high, but we've decided to go to 7 feet high and add the plantings. I think there's a 60% requirement for the length of our southern property line to screen. The church is at 81%, which I think is a great deal. This process basically was Adam Gillette, myself, and Dave, and then we added a few more people, and then we got to where we had a purchase agreement late November. We presented it to the church congregation, and that's when the official word finally got out. And we were real happy with the geometric. So we did 3 revisions, and I really took this project very personally because I worship there, and I've guaranteed to the Homeowners Association presidents that unlike a subdivision that we bought in Carmel that showed a really nice entryway with landscaping and so forth, it didn't happen. But I guaranteed these people, my name's on that drawing, my name's on that design. If it's not built, I will make sure it's built. You've got my word. This project is very good for my family. It was very, very good for me. It's energized my life. And I guarantee you it will have eternal benefits for you, and I urge a positive recommendation for the Planning Commission. Town Council, thank you.
City Council.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, at this time, we're going to open it to the public, where you will come forward and state your name and address for the record. And feel free to ask a question or state an opinion or comment. Understand your questions and comments are not addressed during the public hearing, but will be once the public hearing is closed. Now, for the sake of expediency, we also want to make sure that we hear new and fresh information. And I know you had the members of the church stand up, but just so that you make sure that everyone's voice gets a chance to be heard, I'm going to ask that everyone that is here in favor of this tonight to stand up. Okay. All right, thank you. And then those opposing, if you wish to stand up, please stand up. All right, thank you. Now, what we're going to do is, first of all, I'll ask if there is an attorney representing anyone, a group. I don't see any. All right, so we're going to have a little bit of order here. I'm going to start with this side of the room, and I'm going to ask if you wish to come forward to speak, to stand up and get lined up over here, and they'll have you come to the podium, and we'll go. And then once everyone that has been heard on this side, once that line is finished, we'll come over here so that you don't have to wonder, keep raising hands and stuff. So if you feel like you need to come up and speak, come on up and get in line. Okay, that has our line now for this side of the room. And, sir, we'll... And again, your name and address for the record. And
my name is Bob Jackson. I live in Greystone, and I never thought I would be up here opposing a church coming into my neighborhood. I have canvassed our neighborhood, and to date I have not found one person in Greystone who is in favor of this amendment. I'm opposed to it for about 4 different reasons. One, I sent members of the council a photograph last night of what I saw at 6 o'clock in the evening, which was people in our community enjoying the green space, which I think is a part of the 2040 plan, even though somebody said it really wasn't. I'm a physician. I'm very passionate about kids having the athletic ability to get out and do things like that. I think it's important for Fishers community. I think to take that away from this community is a crime. I think we need to keep the green space. I want to start also by saying that I have nothing against I-Town Church. As a matter of fact, I support their ministry and their mission. And I prayed a lot about this before I ever got up here, that I'll even come up and talk. So one reason I think it's very important is that we keep this green space and give our kids and our families a place to go and enjoy this athletic ability. We don't have many of those. We're taking it away. Safety. I know they say it's adding 4,000 cars on a weekend is not going to be a problem. I really think it is. And I also think it's poor stewardship if they're only going to use their church on a weekend. Lastly, I would think, since I can't find anybody in Greystone that wants to approve this amendment, that would send a red flag up to both the Planning Commission and the church. As I look at this, this is a very rapidly expanding church, which I think is wonderful. And I think they're trying to build their church on a postage stamp when they pray ought to be looking for a mailing label.
thank you. Well, next, please. We need to make this line a little more definite so I can see exactly where it is. And
I'm Fiona Wright, and I'm also a member of the Greystone community.
your address for the record, please.
Oh, 12562 Broadmoor Court North. And we did meet with I-Town, and they were unable to address our most significant concerns. I am opposed to adopting the text amendment and have submitted documents for the record detailing several points which support my opposition. And throughout this process, just like Bob, I have been clear that I am very supportive of I-Town's message and mission. I am not against I-Town, but I am for preserving the green space for our community. I submit that the Fishers 2040 Comprehensive Plan, which is intended to guide decisions for improving the quality of life and the future of Fishers, does not support the request to amend this text. And my reasons are detailed in a document that I sent just today, dated 6/7. As the publisher of Natural Awakenings, a member of Launch Fishers, and of the Hoosier Environmental Council, I'm compelled to use my 2 minutes to speak to the impacts of preserving our green space and exploring alternative options. The quality of life and health of our residents is supported by significant green space and recreational opportunities within the community. The City of Fishers is looking to expand our parks and recreational opportunities, as evidenced by the recent announcement to invest in a 70-acre waterfront park at Geist Reservoir. A cement quarry operation will be transformed into a waterfront park for the community, and I know I'm excited about that. I can't wait. A decision to approve this amendment with 75% impervious surfaces, mainly artificial materials and surfaces, to replace recreational green space points in the opposite direction of the decision to retain and grow our green recreational spaces. Green space supports a healthier lifestyle and community. In our April edition of Natural Awakenings, of which you all have a copy, I have more, a leading environmental advocate, Tony Juniper, stated, "A number of population studies reveal how people with access to green space feel better and experience higher levels of well-being, especially in mental and psychological health, two issues that Fishers is grappling with, and I understand I-Town is also dealing with. I contend that the green space contributes to a healthier lifestyle and a healthier community. If this land is paved over, it cannot be reclaimed." Mayor Scott Fadness wrote in the June edition of Think Fishers.
Ma'am, that's your time. If you'll quickly wrap up.
This month's edition features highlights from the Fishers Comprehensive Plan to increase our city's vibrancy through smart planning. I'm challenging Mayor Fadness and all involved with this project to apply entrepreneurial and nonconformist thinking to look at creative, innovative alternatives. Ideally, the City of Fishers would aggressively consider viable options that could include removing a TIF designation, change an ordinance for a piece of property that doesn't compromise existing green space or residential neighborhoods, help find an existing facility to repurpose and take measurements.
Thank you, ma'am. We do have to, we'll never get through this entire audience if we don't.
Thank you.
Thank you. And also for the record, those documents that were sent in this afternoon have been distributed to us on the commission. Next.
Hi, I'm Kim Miller, 12562 Broadmoor Court North. It's interesting to note, everyone sitting in the front row here, we all go to a mega church as well. We all go to Northview. A lot of people in the neighborhood aren't, so none of us are opposed to church, and we all find in our heart that it's a challenge to be opposed to it, but it's just being opposed to it to be our neighbor, frankly. So to finish the last few thoughts there, I believe our city can entertain innovative options both to secure alternative land for the church and entertain options or create a new park opportunity within this property too. So that's the end of that thought process stream that I think was all important to get on the record, which is the land is available for sale. Fishers is looking to increase the amount of park space. You should actually really consider that and help I-Time fund a different piece of property. So 2 months ago, we closed on our house in Walnut Creek. We lived there for 22 years, a lovely property. We had our backyard was like living in Brown County. Our kids moved. The house, we needed to right size. We needed to get a smaller home that was more appropriate for us. So we looked, just like I-Town is, for a couple of years. And we found an appropriate neighborhood for us, a small neighborhood that were building luxury ranch-style homes. We moved in. We picked our lot almost 2 years ago based on the proximity to the golf course and the view. So imagine our concern when we found out that in our very backyard that this was going to, a church was going to be built. So it's really is the perfect location for us to have our retirement home. But that's my story, okay? That's my emotional appeal, and you can tell my voice is shaking because of this. And it is a very emotional thing. But our view really is that the property behind us is not the proper location for building a huge house of worship. Now, would you guys as a city really approve somebody to build a home that would house 1,000 people and allow 4,000 family members every weekend to come visit and put a parking lot in that represents a driveway for 950 people? I mean, I'm trying to give you a visual representation of what it is. It's overwhelming me even being here with the amount of people that crowded in around us, and I can only imagine. Literally, guys, the pictures, you guys need to come out and stand on our decks. The property is so close, the pictures don't do a good visual representation of how close it is. There's going to be a street back there. I have 4 small grandchildren, and there's going to be a street in my backyard with crowds every weekend. It's going to be like having a rock concert in our backyard. Again, we are not opposed, but the church is growing so fast That at Northview, same thing in Fishers, we started adding services. And the road can't handle it. Right now, to make a left-hand turn out of our neighborhood on the weekend, because that's when everybody in Fishers is home, out and about, spending their money, you can't make a left-hand turn. I can't imagine adding that extra capacity, and I'm really, quite frankly, scared for the safety of our grandkids, too, in that neighborhood, and a lot of us are in that stage of life. I do want to say this is an emotionally charged discussion, and that's why I wanted to come up and actually not give you facts and figures. We've documented all those. You guys have them. But I need you to see the other side of the equation, which really is, it's an emotional impact. I'm not even unpacked yet. And here I am spending time and energy trying to preserve my investment. And it's more than the investment. It's the investment in the community, too, as Dr. Jackson said. You know, people's lives are being changed on that. People see God in nature. And in Fishers, if you guys start taking away all the green space and the nature, it's going to be harder for some people to come to that place. So I will say this, too, and I'm going to end. The town of Fishers, I would like to put that on record. Westfield. They went through a long 10-month process and did due diligence on a similar type of topic. And I would ask you guys, I don't know that you have enough information to say yes. I think you have enough to say no. And please, use your due diligence. Everything that we've given you, take into consideration all sides, please.
Thank you very much.
You.
If we could refrain from applauding, we're never going to get through all this, and we'll close the public hearing because we have to get to our parts. I want to make sure people get a chance to be heard.
Hello, my name is Darin Meacham. This is my wife, Julia Meacham. We live at 11835 Gray Eagle Drive in Fishers, and we've been members at Gray Eagle for about 4 years.
We've been at
I-Town, I'm sorry. We've been at I-Town for 4 years. We've been at Gray Eagle for 17 years. We've watched exponential growth here in Fishers. We've watched the council do wonderful things with this town. We moved out here when you had to drive down 116th Street and pass barns and cows. And so to see growth here in Fishers is not uncommon for us. I think that I-Town is a life-giving church. It has greatly impacted our life, and we are in favor of this. The Gray Eagle Homeowners Association has given us directive that they are in favor of I-Town Church moving in there. Although there was some concerns, the concerns were addressed by the church, and the Homeowner Association is in agreement with moving forward with this project.
And I would just like to address some of the things that we've seen. We've just seen God do through I-Town during our time there. When we started at I-Town, we were already at a church and just felt led to come to I-Town. But we have seen many miracles in our lives, and we've always had, one of those being we've always had a great marriage, but our marriage was kind of tried and tested at the beginning of our time there, and through the prayer ministry that takes place at I-Town, God has just restored and revitalized that, and our marriage is beyond our wildest dreams now. And we've also experienced great spiritual, financial, and emotional and physical healings, even in our personal lives and in the lives of others that have been touched. We also just wanted to speak to the small group aspect of I-Town Church. We ourselves have housed many small groups in our home. We've watched people set free in their finances. We've watched marriages reconciled and revitalized as well. We've seen many teens come to know the Lord, and these are kids who were not in church before. These are kids that are now bringing their families to church and growing in their faith. And so we understand the concerns of some of the other neighbors, and we ourselves, our home backs up to a green space, so I understand. We've actually been in a meeting like this because of some concerns we had over that space not too long ago. So I totally, we recognize and empathize with their concerns as well as far as that goes, but just the impact we've seen in our personal lives and in the lives of others that have been touched through the ministry at I-Town Church, and the proximity between the high schools, and just the visibility that iTown would receive, we just believe would impact so many lives in just amazing ways. And we'd see some of these miracles happen in other people's lives as well. So we would just love that for our community. So thank you.
Thank you. Please, I'm asking, and I'm going to ask one more time, we don't need applauses after each one. We're not going to get through all this. I'm asking for you to please refrain. Next, please.
I'm already up here. Doug Kistler, 11113 Mirador Lane, Fishers. Good evening. Thank you for the time. I've been a resident of Fishers, Indiana now for about 13 years. My wife and 2 daughters, we've had the privilege of attending iTown Church for approximately the last 4 years. And I certainly want to be respectful of all those that are opposed to this church plant. But at the same time, I'd like to challenge everyone in this room to think what greater impact we could have on our children, other children in the city of Fishers, than allowing them to have a relationship with Jesus Christ. I think that the church has been more than willing to show that they will accommodate whatever endeavor is possible to make sure that the green space is protected and preserved, and quite frankly, to share what will be a new, beautiful green space created by this church. From starting with some of the illustrations that Dave showed, from where they were back in August to where we are today in June, I would say that they have been more than accommodating. So again, I challenge anyone that is opposed to a church that will save lives, that will introduce a relationship that will last for eternity, to contemplate one thing: make a friend, be a friend, and bring a friend to Christ. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
Kelly Applegate, 16029 Timpani Way, Noblesville. Just on the edge of Noblesville. Barely. Okay. My name's Kelly Applegate. I'm a counselor at Fishers High School. I've worked there for about 10 years. One of the things I'm most passionate about is the mental health of our students. Many students in our community are struggling with mental health issues, and they need to connect with positive people and organizations like iTown Church. Actually, the reason I started attending iTown Church a few years ago was because I witnessed the positive effect that iTown had on one of my students. She struggled with many issues, including depression, anxiety, and thoughts of self-harm. Over the span of a year, I witnessed a transformation in her life. She became a leader. She had a positive attitude. She impacted her peers. One day I asked her, "Hey, what's different? There's just something different about you." She told me her friends had invited her to iTown. There are lots of kids who go to iTown. And in fact, she invited me to church. She said, "Hey, you should come check it out with your family." Since that day, we've been members at iTown. And she is now on staff, and she works with hundreds and hundreds of students and impacts lots of kids, including my own. iTown is a community that welcomes and encourages people from all walks of life. It's a safe place for hurting people, and its close proximity to Fishers High School and HSC High School is really important. I believe that iTown's values align with the city's mental health focus and can partner with the city to help better the community by offering hope and by transforming lives. With that said, I cannot overemphasize the importance of iTown continuing to exist in the city of Fishers. I am very optimistic that you will see that iTown directly impacts Fishers residents in a positive way. iTown needs the city of Fishers, and the city of Fishers needs iTown. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Scott Swan. I'm a proud 15-year resident of Fishers and a attendee of iTown over the last 4 years. My address is 9999 Parkway Drive in Fishers. My wife and 3 kids have been proud residents there. Relationships brought me to iTown. Specifically, it was a relationship series the pastor was delivering. We came and enjoyed that relationship series and have stayed ever since because of the relationships that we've made and created. I would say in the 30 years that I've been a Christian, my walk with Christ has never been deeper than it has been having gone through I-Town. The Holy Spirit moves through that church in a huge way, whether it's Saturday morning in the prayer service, during worship on the First Wednesday programs, or on Sundays. It moves through the community in the outreach where we build Build-A-Bears for children in hospitals, where we reach out to students at the schools in Fishers, where we are able to participate in Serve Day and go into the neighborhoods, meet people, get to know them where they are, and encourage them and love them where they are. So relationships brought me to I-Town. My own personal relationship with Christ has never been deeper as a result of I-Town, and it's the relationships that I believe are going to grow even more if you support this project. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
That's a hard act to follow, but I'll try. My name's Ken Christe. My address is 12836 Whitebridge Drive. I've been a resident of Fishers for 15 years, 14 and a half of that in Gray Eagle. I just want to make 3 quick points. I think they'll be a little different from what's been presented. First, we already know from the Fishers 2040 plan that one of the stated objectives is protect environmentally sensitive areas and natural corridors for environmental health and recreational opportunities. It's hard to see how a church is a recreational opportunity as its primary purpose. Further in that document, under the Parks and Open Spaces section, it says that development shall protect and enhance the natural environment. It's difficult, if not impossible, to argue that a church and large parking lot would enhance the natural environment. So I have to wonder, if the 2040 plan has no weight to influence future decisions, why was it developed in the first place? My second point, and this is a little off topic, but I believe it's related to this. I read in today's IBJ online that the I-Town's pastor, Dave Summerall, said that the new location would be, quote, between our 2 high schools that are plagued with mental health issues and drug abuse issues, and that's what our church does. We solve those problems. He said, being in between the 2 church high schools is a great location because they'll have to drive by. The church's assertion that this location will help them with their youth outreach appears more like a justification after the fact. On a related note, I think the aspersions the pastor cast about the students at the 2 high schools is a little overstated and actually further serves to negatively impact the area. So, in my opinion, so far anyway, the impact of the I-Town Church to Gray Eagle isn't exactly positive. Plus, the other half dozen churches on the perimeter of Gray Eagle might have something to say about the power of one church to single-handedly address such ills. My final point really has to do with what I would call the elephant in the room, and this came out a little bit at the Gray Eagle homeowners meeting a couple weeks ago. This appears to be about money. Not any money from the church for the city of Fishers. The church remains nonprofit before and after such a move, and therefore the move doesn't impact the city in any positive financial way. In fact, it might cost the city's taxpayers for improvements to roads to handle the traffic and other accommodations during construction. The I-Town Church wins regardless, with a location surrounded by a higher average income demographic, not exactly consistent with their stated mission, by the way. This sale may be more about what follows this sale and could affect the land between the proposed new church and the other businesses down 126th Street. If that land were to be developed, it would likely contain tax-paying businesses that would bring financial benefit to the city of Fishers, but crush property values for Gray Eagle homeowners who might then be stuck with a useless 14-hole golf course. R and Thompson claims their new facility will focus more on wedding receptions, banquets, and golf outings, the latter of which will all likely go elsewhere without the presence of a driving range. R and Thompson themselves has to date not articulated much of anything about the clubhouse plans, 20 seconds, new clubhouse plans, and apparently can't even say if they're going to keep their liquor license, which would be an essential ingredient of attracting such events. Property values for the homeowners of Gray Eagle are already impacted by, or will already be impacted by the loss of a driving range, and even the talk of all these possibilities and what might happen down the road is making prospective homeowners think about whether they should choose this location to move to.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
I have no issues with churches or religion. They're fine. I carry a cross in my pocket. that I've had since I was 16 years old to remind me of my personal faith. This is not about churches at all. It's about what should be best for the city of Fishers. I think that's what you're here to do, and I don't think that's negatively impacting the neighborhood and property values for close to 700 tax-paying voters.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hi, good evening. My name is Jen Miller, and I am here. I'm here with my sister Steph, and we are current residents of Fishers. We live on 9543 Gibbs Street, and we are the owners of Lily and Sperry Boutique, which is a business in the Edge building just down the street here. And we are here in support of iTown Church. My sister and I felt called to move from Florida to Indianapolis in 2012. We took a leap of faith moving here without knowing anybody, and because of the lack of community, it was a tough transition for us. But we were making plans to move back to Florida, but the Lord had bigger dreams for us. And that was when we found iTown Church. And from the first moment that we stepped through the doors, we felt like we were home. And it was there that we were able to build our community and create a family when we had none. When we first moved up, we lived in Carmel because of our jobs. But we found ourselves being drawn to Fishers to be closer to our church family. It was important for us to be a part of the community that our church was in. And it is because of iTown that we now call Fishers home, and that our business is planted in the heart of Fishers. We are forever grateful to Pastor Dave and Kate for listening to the calling of the Lord that he placed on their lives. Because of their love for the people of Fishers and their obedience to start iTown here, we were able to follow our own calling to open our boutique and to be a part of this community, and that we have grown to love so much. I can say with confidence that our boutique would not be a part of this thriving community or even exist without the support and leadership from our church.
In 2016, approximately 2.5 years into owning our business, we were asked to relocate our store. We were originally on Maple Street in downtown Fishers because the building was bought out for redevelopment. We struggled to find another location in Fishers, and we had different opportunities in other cities and actually in other states to move. But ultimately, it was because of the love for our church and the support that we had with the community that we decided to keep our business in downtown Fishers. If iTown is able to move to this new location, I can only imagine the incredible impact that they will have on this community. A big principle of the church is to take people from where they are to where God has called them to be. And we are a testament of that. We want just as many people to have the same experience as we have. To not only grow as individuals, but to also step into the calling that the Lord has placed on their lives. When you walk into the auditorium at iTown, it says in big bold letters, "Welcome home." And I couldn't think of any better statement than that. Both as individuals and as a local small business, we support the move and expansion of iTown Church. The church has not only changed our lives, but also shaped our business and love for this community. We are honored and thankful to stand before you tonight on behalf of our iTown Church family. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else left in line? Okay. People on this side of the room, if you wish to speak, come step up over here and get in line. If we can kind of stand a little more in front of the table, I can kind of see how many people are there. Up this way a little more. That's it? Okay, sir. Thank you.
Hello, my name's Michael Davis, 12046 Weathered Edge Drive. That's Sandstone Lakes, across the street from the Gray Eagle. Just want to say, 19-year resident of Fishers. For 17 years of those, my older son and my younger son have taken lessons from Scott Morris at Gray Eagle. Gray Eagle driving range, well, it was known as the Golf Academy before they built the adjoining golf course, was a big draw for us to live in this area. Driving range provides practice facilities for numerous golf teams, HSC, Fishers, junior highs, all use Gray Eagle's driving range. It's the biggest, largest driving range in the area. Many great golfers have gone through that. Those who can't afford to go to Hawthorns, Gray Eagle is the place. I'm not necessarily opposed to the church, but I am opposed to losing a great asset in Fishers, and that would be the practice area at Gray Eagle. The plans I saw really limit Gray Eagles. I mean, it's a much smaller parking lot for them. It'd be golf only. Have you ever tried to take your 3-year-old who is very interested in golf to a full-scale golf club that doesn't have a driving range? No. Okay. Both of my sons are very successful. My oldest one graduated from IUPUI, played 4 years on the golf program, is now at University of Michigan getting his master's. My younger son plays on the HSC golf team. They've both been playing tournament golf since they were 3 years old. That opportunity does not exist without a golf facility like that. Okay. In Fishers, we have River Glen, a small practice facility. We have Ironwood, a small practice facility. My older son can't even hit driver at Ironwood driving range. It's too short, too small, too narrow. So my hope would be that you could find a solution, that I-Town could find a great place to set up their church.
Time.
And I just would I would rather have Gray Eagle stay as it is, improve itself, make it better for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Good evening. My name is Tom Heck, 13142 Duval Drive, Fishers. Had a Fishers address for 31 years now. So I'm probably been here longer than a lot of people that have been alive. I hadn't planned on getting up here tonight, but the first speaker said something that really made me think. This 2040 plan that people keep talking about. I'll paraphrase what he said. It won't be an exact quote. Something like, we really didn't look at Gray Eagle because it's a golf course. I'll guarantee I've been to a lot of these meetings over the years. Storage units, new housing additions, whatever. They always go through. This is going to get approved. I know it. Whenever Thompson decides to put a housing development on the Gray Eagle golf course, how easy is that going to be approved? Just as easy as this is? That's been my experience over the years, and I think that's what's going to happen here. That's about all I have to say about it.
Thanks, sir.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening. My name is Randy Forbes, and I'm at 12792 Balbo Place. That's over in the Tanglewood subdivision, just east of Brook School Road and just right across from the Gray Eagle Golf Course. I will not debate the life-changing aspects of churches in our community, nor will I debate the aspects of Hindu temples nor mosques. What I do believe is worth debating is the use of this particular property for whatever it would be deemed appropriate. I do derive a sense of value in driving past green space. I work in the Indianapolis area where there's a lot of concrete. Coming into the Fishers area, I drive down 126 and I see kids playing soccer. I see the people on the golf course and the driving range, and it gives me a sense of calming and just enjoyment for our particular community. We have 11 churches, including I-Town, that exist between the Oleo Road, 116th, and 126, and then from Oleo Road all the way down to 37. I would argue that any of those churches would have a very similar message. A great example of what I believe will happen in this particular use of land, should it be deemed for a church. We have an example in what has happened with Grace Community Church and Cross Point, where Grace Community Church leveled a large part of green space and built a massive parking lot. And that parking lot sits empty 99% of the time. I will not argue that grace doesn't change lives, but it does change the environment in which we live, and it does remove the green space. And that is what I'm concerned about this particular use of land here. I think I-Town is a great church. I think they have a great mission. I think they do great work in the community. I just argue that this may not be the right location for that church in lieu of the green space that is currently provided by it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Connie Heck, and I live at 13142 Duval Drive in the Gray Eagle, in the Bluffs Eagle Edition part, which is probably 90% retirees. Like my husband, who was just up here, we've been in Fishers for 31 years. We live between Fall Creek and 106 on Geist Road when it was just a dirt road back in the 80s. So to see the explosion that's going on in Fishers so rapidly in the last 5 years is a bit scary. And one of the things that I have not heard the church talk about, and I agree with everyone, they probably do wonderful work. I have nothing against what they have said about themselves or anything. They never talked about the cafe or / coffee shop that's going to be there in the church. So their church will be open 7 days a week, if that is the case, not just Saturday and Sunday. Right now, it is difficult to get out of Gray Eagle onto Brook School Road, especially since they now have reopened Brook School Road to 146th Street, which is a straight shot to Cliffs. You try getting out there on a Saturday night, or even into the neighborhood on a Saturday night when there is a line of traffic. And that's my biggest concern. So getting out on 126 or getting out onto Brook School Road is an issue now, and it will become an even greater issue unless some stop-and-go lights are put up at those intersections. They explained at their meeting that they do have police that direct the traffic, which I do know most churches all do that to get their congregation out. But they cannot see me sitting at Brook School and Duval Drive trying to get out on a Sunday morning or a Saturday evening to go somewhere because of the line of traffic. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Sir?
My name is John Gu. I live at 13646 Creek Ridge Lane. I've been in Fishers for about 10 years. I wasn't planning on saying anything tonight, but I'm feeling quite compelled. As a Fishers resident, obviously I go to I-Town as well. Just for everyone in the room, especially yourselves, to know the opportunity that you have here. I went to I-Town for the first time 5 years ago. I had no relationship with Christ, and that started me down a path. The place is amazing. The Holy Spirit is in it, and I know all that sounds a little crazy. If you don't have a faith, and hopefully you come join us. If you do have a faith, you get what I'm talking about. But tonight, just as a guy married to an amazing woman with a bunch of wonderful kids, I can tell you, hands down, being a part of I-Town saved the life of my son when my wife went in the hospital, bleeding, 22 weeks pregnant, 6 centimeters dilated with twins. The pastors from my town showed up, quite literally showed up at the hospital and didn't leave for days. They were just hanging out in the lobby, covering us with prayer, doing everything that they could to support us, which was just to be there, right? To the relationships you heard talked about, the community. My wife and I went through a crazy time. We lost a son, gained an angel, and we also have a beautiful little baby boy at home. Total miracle through this whole process. Pastor Dave isn't just a pastor of an amazing church. He was willing to come to the hospital and sit with me and the head neonatologist and my wife and talk through the risks associated with delivering our sons or not delivering our sons, or whether or not to intervene, as we made the decision to choose not to intervene and send our first son, Maverick, to the NICU, which was a horribly difficult decision to make. I know we made the right one. God performed lots of miracles after that, and his little brother Lincoln is now at home with us. None of that happens without I-Town. I would not have started a company without I-Town. I'm building an incredibly awesome company in the city of Fishers right now. I'm investing wildly in this town. I own rental properties in Fishers. My wife and I were blessed to be able to build a big, beautiful home in Fishers. And the one thing that we say all the time is we will never leave Fishers because we will never leave I-Town. Our friends won't leave Fishers because they won't leave I-Town. I believe that property values are going to skyrocket in the neighborhoods around this church because that is the draw and the power of an amazing environment. And it's not the church, it's God. That's what's so special about it. It's really not about I-Town, it's about Jesus, and people will be drawn to it. It's going to do nothing but create amazing, amazing experiences for people in our community.
Time.
I love you guys. Thanks.
Thank you.
I love that. And we are rule followers. My name is Ann Tiernan, and I've lived in this community for about 21 years. I live at 11057 Preservation Point. And I think you've heard a lot of the good work that iTown has done, and I think it's important to point out that all this has been done in a pretty short period of time in space that's highly not efficient, very unorganized, people coming in and taking shuttles out to parking spots. And I just think, what is the potential of what this group of people can do through the Holy Spirit if they were in an organized, efficient space? They need one. We need one. We're meeting at all hours, at all times, all over the city to try to come together as a community and to have a facility where everyone can come together more efficiently. I think was really exciting. The leaders of the church I found to be very respectful and true to their word and responsive and listening, and will take the concerns of the residents here tonight to heart. If there needs to be more green space, if there needs to be changes, this is a leadership that pursues excellence and wants to coexist within the community and is a part of the community. Being between the two high schools, I think, is paramount. When you talk about going to gyms and why do people break their New Year's resolution? Well, it's too far. It's the kind of a 4-mile radius. Putting the church right between the two high schools is key. It is a magnet for young people, not with a broad brush of all young people have problems, but all young people, all people are searching for a purpose in life. And when they come to iTown, they find support and they can help find meaning. I was going to a church in Castleton for many, many years. As I've said, I've been here for 2 decades. But it was my children who I was dropping off, running errands and coming back, and dropping off and running errands and coming back, until finally one day I thought, what is going on in there? I need to go inside. And I think that's happening with a lot of families. And so it is a magnet for young people. It's been a positive impact for my family. I believe in the leadership. And when I just had a crisis in my life, when I had a coworker that was at death's door, despite all the people that I know and that I'm a Hoosier and I have been here, it was this church that was at the hospital. It was this church that came through. And a lot of these people I don't even know, but as the church supports the community, and I think that's what we need. Thanks.
Thank you very much. We will now close the public hearing. Staff, any additional comments?
Well, I just think I generally start off as the director and kind of I see the keeper of the Fishers 2040 plan going forward. Just want to kind of clarify this statement. The Fishers 2040 plan does clearly identify the property as open space, but I think the point being made by Taylor was that we had land use committees look at properties in great detail on what the future use would be. This area was looked at in an aerial view, saw that there was a golf course and just designated open space. There wasn't a task force formed around keeping Gray Eagle open space, is what we're trying to clarify. We had task force focusing on the State Road 37, on Geist, and so we do want to pay due regard to the comp plan and understand that this is open space today, but we just want to highlight it wasn't necessarily the long-term vision on purpose to say this is always going to remain open space. The reality is this is private property. It's not owned by the city, so much of the parks and open space elements talk about paying sensitive attention to environmental areas around Geist, woodland areas, nature preserves, and areas that the city can be responsible for maintain because we own that property. When it comes to private property, we have the obligation to look at things in an objective manner, the request before us, and look at the proposal and weigh the pros and cons. So I just want to clarify that even though the comp plan is open space, we weren't trying to disregard it, saying like we didn't pay attention, but really it was looked at, we knew it was a golf course, it was designated open space, and not probably discussed much further than that.
Thank you.
And then we're available for any other questions we can clarify.
Members of the commission.
Mr. President, did you allow us the opportunity to respond to the remonstrance?
Generally, no, but well.
I believe that's actually what your paper said.
No, but go ahead.
Okay, thank you. This will just be very brief. Just 2 big comments here. Number one thing that we didn't hear a lot from the neighbors, and I hope that they actually are fully aware of it. When the Gray Eagle neighborhood was originally approved back in 1996, it did not include the Greystone neighborhood. So that neighborhood came well afterwards, and it's not part of the Gray Eagle Homeowners Association or with that original PUD ordinance. In about 2005, 2006, the Gray Eagle Golf Course began working on its plan for the new golf course clubhouse. Here's the Greystone neighborhood. And before the first house, this isn't on. You can see it?
Yeah, we've got it, yeah. I was wondering why you were stopping. I'm like,
I can't see it.
I know I didn't wear my hearing aid, but come on.
Okay. No, I see, but the audience
Well, I
can't see
did,
it.
now.
Well, you can see it. The audience can't see it right now. But in 2005, 2006, about the same time when the Greystone neighborhood was beginning to go under development, the golf course came through and provided the updated location for the clubhouse, which is right here, and then just immediately adjacent to the Greystone neighborhood that was under development at that time was going to be an area for parking. And so what is already, and that proposed plan was then, that improvement location permit was approved by the city. There's no requirement for any additional landscaping. There's no buffering. There's parking right up immediately against the Greystone neighborhood. And again, I'm sorry.
Steve, can you bring that one up to me?
Can I do what?
Can I have that one?
Yes, sir.
Mm-hmm.
The relevance of talking about that plan is that we're not really talking about whether the church is the church plan compared to what's there today. It's what could be there today or tomorrow. And so the clubhouse plan and the relocation of the clubhouse, the parking could all go right up against the existing neighborhood. And so what you saw, and again, I'm sorry that the audience can't see this, but the landscape plan, there's about a little bit over 4 acres of open space. When we met with some of the neighbors that lived in Greystone, they talked about their view. They talked about that, and the church went back and said, well, let's make sure we can preserve that 4 acres. There's a pipeline, it's a natural barrier. There's no need, we don't have to cross that for parking, which was in the original plan for the clubhouse relocation as well as the original plan for the church. And then as you saw, Dave Stepworth talk through all of the landscaping, the buffering. So those are all things that are above and beyond what could possibly be there today or tomorrow if this project doesn't go forward. So we view it from a land use and planning perspective that this is a significantly better option for the Greystone neighbors than what was already approved for the relocation of the golf course and the parking lot, and certainly what could happen in the future. Second point, just to be responsive on the open space issue, the Gray Eagle Golf Course believes that this proposal is vital and critical to the long-term viability of the Gray Eagle Golf Course. That is a 226-acre open space. So they believe that the ability to make this happen, provide the new clubhouse, and provide the amenities that they would like to do as a result of this proposal will provide not only the open space to continue into the future, but to support the property values within Gray Eagle and the surrounding area. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Members of the commission?
I've got probably a few comments, and I may need some help from staff and maybe even Steve as well as we kind of move through this. First of all, I want to make a couple clarifications that were kind of mentioned during the public comment section. Although our good mayor does a lot of things around this fair city, okay, he doesn't do land planning. Okay, that's done by council. So I just want to make sure we're directing any angst or any applause at the right group as we move forward, and it shouldn't be directed at the mayor. I think as we move forward with these decisions that are going to be made and whatever happens here, and then we go to council, we have to take a look at each item on its basis, regardless of what that use is. And I heard a lot of you guys coming up and talking about how great the church is and all the great things the church does. That's unarguable, okay? I'm a Christian. I attend church. I know all the good things churches do. Okay, you guys are in place now. You're doing those good things, and it's much appreciated. But as we look at this is a land use matter, right? Is it the right thing for the community in that spot? One of the things which I argued the last time during the first reading we had at council was the fact that if a golf course does not have a driving range, in my opinion, as a golfer, it will fail. Because avid golfers won't show up to play golf. Because I know I won't, because I'm getting too darn old and I need to warm up or else I'm going to hurt myself out there. So working with Thompson and Dave Compton and those folks, trying to get an amenable solution to at least try to give this golf course every opportunity to survive was paramount in my decision-making. I'm not convinced the state of golf is in a really great place at the moment, okay? And I do believe that Thompson is struggling on that site, and I think the commitments that have been put forth by Thompson shows that they want to try to continue to make that a viable golf course for the area. And for me, in my decision, looking at the Gray Eagle residents, that was key, okay? So I have probably pushed a little further than most on this on the council, and I'm going to push a little bit more here, okay, because I still think there's a workable solution. And if we look at this building design, which we didn't really get to on the front end of that, there is some architectural stuff that went on. Steve, I would urge you and your building group with the church, if this does move forward and it goes to the council for formal approval, we need to take a look at that design. If you can for me, get some commitments to try to make sure that the fit and finish goes with the character of the surrounding areas. I think that, we pushed in a lot of areas along 116th Street where we've been doing some commercial development where they came in and they want to do commercial buildings and we made them turn around and look like houses because you're putting it right next to a house. So again, I'm saying let's look at the character of what's around that. Should this pass and move forward to council and pass there, I'm going to be pressing really hard on the architectural there that it's going to fit with that whole thing. I know we're going to do the same thing, Darin Thompson, on the clubhouse when they go to build it, that it makes sure that it fits in that area and that all the amenities they're talking about having there. I also have some concerns with the impervious surface and the existing building still sitting on that site. I don't understand that at all, and I'm not looking for an answer tonight on that, okay, but I'm going to need an explanation of why the heck we're keeping that existing building. If you demo that existing building, you're well under the 75% impervious surface, may be able to shift that whole building further to the north, away from the neighborhood that's beginning to talking there, that shifts it over. I'm not sure. I'm not a land surveyor or an engineer, so I'm going to leave that to those guys. But just a question whether or not that can be done so we can at least have some answers. Again, I do know this gets very emotional and very charged up. I want to remind everybody that we're charged with making the best decision we possibly can for the community at large. And again, it has nothing to do with whether this is a church or a strip mall in my mind. It has no bearing whatsoever. I'm going to make the same decision based on what I feel is the right thing in the use for that area and protecting the residents that are there prior to make sure they're still getting what they need. As much as I would love to have a 80 station driving range there, my worry is Thompson's going to sell it if something doesn't happen is my big worry. And we as city council members and we as planning commission members don't have the ability to let and keep businesses in business. That's their job, right? We just have to make sure that we can do the best to make sure the amenities that are surrounding that and the infrastructure that surrounds that supports any effort to go ahead and do good business. That's all I got.
Anyone else? Sir, okay.
Just a comment against Pete. His comment about golfers having I run a Friday golf group out of Britton Falls. We have 40 of us, and when we go every Friday, only 4 go up on the driving range. The other 36 of us putt. So, so we would not miss the driving range.
Well, I'm a dork, and I don't even putt, so... And I don't know bogey from anything, but anyways, I do have some comments. And first of all, I want to thank for this coming, because I'm like, I drove our department crazy going, I know there was a public hearing that I saw something, and we couldn't put it together. That's why I asked you to get this to me, because I was like, I knew I heard it somewhere. I have mixed emotions, and I understand all the arguments. There's still 200 and some odd acres of open space left. This would help preserve, taking them at face value for their word, the ability for that to continue on the golf course in a more viable manner. I drive past there every day too and see the people outside and the high school kids and all. So it is tough, but things that are really kind of bugging me, one is, I agree with Pete, the keeping of the existing building. I don't know, unless it was maybe reskinned or something, because, I think we need to really see what that's going to look like, okay? Or at least city council, if it so chooses to go further. An auxiliary building, fine, but, to what's it going to look like? I would like to have seen a more residential in character looking design for the church. It is in keeping with some of the churches up by the high school on Oleo Road. It's not in keeping with what's already down there if you look at New Hope across the way. The flat roof, very industrial looking building. I would like to see some of that. I'm not really supportive of the variance from the UDO on the flat roof. The church by nature has to have the parking. And you're right, it doesn't get used a lot. There's a lot of times it sit empty. I wish there was, a resolution to that. But one of the other things is, I don't know, it was a couple of months ago, I-Town came before the Board of Zoning Appeals for a variance with the current location. And it had to do with parking. And one of the comments that was made, and I made a comment that you guys were very, very respective. I live on 126th Street, so I would drive past there. And when church was let out or coming and the red lights, my first reaction is, I'm going to be there forever. But the church did a marvelous job of keeping the traffic flowing in and out and did a great job. And I commended you guys on that, and you said, yeah, it's helpful because we're going out onto a 4-lane road. 126th Street. This is going out onto essentially a 2-lane road. And there's a lot of traffic. There's a lot of cars and in a controlled environment. I get yelled at often because I sit up here. By my office, my staff is constantly going, the new roundabout coming off the new interchange on 106th Street is a mess. Do you realize I couldn't turn left coming out of the office to go home for 30 minutes, and then I sat in line for 15 minutes. Oh my gosh, you guys, it's horrible. And I'm like, well, yeah, for that 45 minutes when the world gets out, it's horrible. And it's hard to design everything to be perfect the rest of the time. All the other times you were mad are gone away. So it's always hard to contain that. But again, we're coming out onto a 2-lane road. The other thing that kind of sticks in my head, and I know I'm free talking a little bit here, is if we were making this a housing subdivision and we were putting 2,000 homes in there, 2 people per house for 4,000 people, we'd have you fix the roads. We don't do this here. And that road I think it needs to be looked at. It needs, we would have an impact fee if you were a developer developing for homes to help offset the cause and effect of the increased traffic. I think we got to look at that. Okay? And then my last comment is the ingress-egress road, looks like the second one, the farthest to the south, I guess that would be, right up about, it's been put on the edge of the property right by the homes. And usually you like to have it coming across, but the cross street is a school, isn't it? Yep. So I don't know that we need the cross traffic to match it up there, like we would if it was an intersection, subdivision. I'd like to see that go away and move down, if the engineering could do that, okay? I just think it's the wrong place for it, okay? So those are kind of my comments. I don't know how you put it in motion, and if so move forward, I would trust my council members sitting up here, that my comments would be heard at that level, okay? As a person sitting on here and a person that lives in the community on the same area. So that's all from the dork.
I'll go ahead and make a motion for a favorable recommendation with the following stipulations: that we look at the fit and finish of the architecture to get commitments from the church to make sure it's within the character of the surrounding area. I know I'm being broad there, but Steve, I think you're with me. Secondarily, I'd like to add in Butch's comment about looking at the ingress egress point, changing that. And then for staff, well, let me continue. We need to have a plan in that second building. There needs to be a plan on the existing building that's there. I don't quite understand what that is, but we need to have a better understanding. So I guess from that standpoint, that's what I do, the motion with those items. And then I guess as a side note to staff, I don't know if there's been any traffic studies been done and any road impact, but we probably ought to be prepared to answer that at council meeting.
So I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second the motion and then.
Further discussion?
Yeah, further discussion. I disagree with I'm seconding the motion to get it on the table, but I disagree on it. From an engineering standpoint, that's where you want the access, further away from 126. So I have to disagree with you on that, but I want the motion on the floor where the development is working.
Yeah, from an engineering point, where I appreciate it. I'm not saying one or the other.
Yeah.
Let's just make sure we look at it.
I don't want somebody to get hung up on their decision, yes or no, based on your actual motion.
I'm good with that.
Any other discussion? Secretary, call the roll, please. Yeah, we're here. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed or abstained? Motion carries. We have a second part of this on, which is the primary plat that does meet all the state regulations. Do I have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Do I have a second? Second. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion carries. We still have business to contend with, folks. Please take your celebrations, your anger, your hostility, your discussions outside. Please quietly leave so that we can move on to our next agenda item, which is 170322. And I ask that you please remain quiet.
Yeah, and I guess I'll just point out that still the screen's only projecting half, so I don't know if anyone, since there's less numbers here, wants to see the projection. Maybe you can move a chair over here, but I have my screen in front of me at least to follow where I'm at. But just to highlight, this item is a residential rezone. It was in front of the Plan Commission back on May 3rd. To highlight the area in red, these are the parcels that was in part of the initial rezone request that staff brought forward. It was shown, it's designated in the comp plan as a state residential. At the last hearing, we had one property owner in particular and responsible for about 80 acres out of Carmel, working with a private developer who had concerns about the rezone. The majority of the other people that showed up, I think, with some concerns and questions were actually neighbors that were notified. They weren't property owners being rezoned at that hearing. But based on those concerns, it was continued so staff can work with that community. We did hold a town hall meeting at the end of May. Myself and the assistant director from engineering was out there to answer questions for transportation, the future roundabout on Florida Road, and all the land use changes we're proposing. And again, to highlight it, this was the area initially in discussion, and the rezone is to go from the current R2 zoning, which is 1.7 units per acre, if a developer came in and complied with straight zoning, to a 1 unit per acre request. So it's a down zone for this area. It's a sensitive area in the comp plan along Geist and along Fall Creek Township, and we want to preserve some open space for larger lots and estate homes, as well as deal with any future traffic concerns out there. I do need to highlight one change since the May 3rd meeting. The property owner that was working with staff on the 80 acres has come to us with a new proposal. So the request before you today removes the 80 acres out of the site. I can highlight. we have dueling laser pointers. Yeah. So it was removed because the proposal that will come as a separate item, it's going to be a separate PUD in the future, but the developer has now approached the city, working with us to provide the right-of-way for the roundabout you can see there at Florida Road and 113th Street. And now they are looking to only develop the north half with approximately 50 lots, and then designate the remaining half, the southern half, to the city as a future park. That will be worked out in detail with the city council through a park in lieu fee agreement. And so this would actually provide less units than even what the state zoning would allow, because they would have about 80 units with 1 acre lots. This is around 50 units and dedicating 40 acres to the city that will be designated as a future park. And again, I want to highlight that will be a separate PUD, so this action has no bearing on this decision tonight. So I'll go back to the proposal before you. This is the properties that will be impacted, and again, we're asking for a rezone and a recommendation of approval that the council can review in their next meeting in July. Are there any questions from? Thank you. Again, for the record, Tony Bagato, Director of Planning and Zoning. This item is a rezone of the Delaware, what's known as the Delaware Commons PUD. It's highlighted in that green parcel for the expansion of the existing Delaware Commons. In the 2000s, the Delaware Commons Center had already started construction with what we have LA Fitness today and Fresh Market on the north side of 116th Street, just west of Cumberland Road. This area was rezoned as part of our employment node back in October. The thought behind that was just rezoning all the area that was still vacant so that we can bring new development into current standards and more in line with the Fishers 2040 plan. So when this area was rezoned, we at staff level understood that we would probably continue with retail development given the existing construction that's there today. I'll highlight, as you can see in the green square, that partially extends over the retention pond. That retention pond is being reconfigured as part of the Top Golf construction and will be enlarged to the north of the site. So this new PUD does expand a little bit more west into that pond today. This is probably the best exhibit to kind of highlight the different proposal in front of you. There was 4 different land use areas identified in this PUD. There's A, B, C, and D. A, I would call an expansion to the west of the existing shopping center with a lot of larger big box tenants and potential for inline tenants. And then along the lake, there's a new building shown there that could be hopefully a large kind of restaurant or some kind of building that can activate along the lakefront. One of the components we worked with the developer here was really creating a unique sense of place, which is what the comp plan is about, creating places that are vibrancy and people want to be. And so this focuses on creating the pond to have a promenade with some outdoor features, some park space, as well as a good walkway and some gazebos I'll highlight. But hopefully on the top north there of the site, we're hoping to get a user that can utilize that lake property as frontage. In the B and C area, those are more traditional outlots. This property has many restraints when it comes to easements. So typically we would like to see buildings closer to the street, and we usually argue that from an urban form design is preferred. But in this case, right behind the cities right away, we have some utility easements, and then we have the Marathon gas line, which has a 100-foot easement, which states no trees or buildings can be within 100 feet. So if you see those buildings in areas B and C, those buildings are actually as close to the easement as they can be. And so staff really made sure we worked through getting some street trees here that are highlighted in the PUD and some mounding to help screen the parking lot, because there won't be any trees in that area. And then area D is a little bit east of the site, but it's still a commercial site that we wanted to make sure we encompassed and included. As part of the PUD that went out originally, the applicant was asking for a drive-through here without an identified user, and staff has worked with them to remove that request, and we're now comfortable with Area D developing as one of the permitted uses or looking to come back to the BZA for a specific user. I'll highlight also on B and C that those are, there's 2 uses for drive-throughs that staff has recommended support of. Area C will have a Bank of America, a bank, and then Area B would have a potential coffee shop user. So the drive-throughs in the PUD state, 1 for a bank, 1 for a coffee shop user. This plan shows more of the open space because some of this it's a concept plan, so some of it could change, but we did want to highlight that the main focal point of the open space will be on the east side of the west side of the plan, closest to the lake, as well as the central green. And in the PUD, there's another plan that shows some red lines that will have connectivity to these sites because we want walkability and some vibrancy. And also staff thinks maybe LA Fitness can utilize some outdoor space eventually if there's some good trails around the lake. This exhibit highlights more of that open space. Again, in Area A, there's going to be kind of an open space area for a park, which can highlight either some community art or maybe some other features like we have in the community park right here on 116th Street that will create a better sense of place. This will also help some of those shops on Area B and C to kind of be integrated into that open space and hopefully activate those users. If you have an ice cream user, then the kids or family may want to go out and sit outside when it's a nice, beautiful day. And as well in Area D, that circle kind of highlights a gazebo or like a pier kind of promenade feature overseeing a decorative fountain that will be added to this as part of the PUD. And then this highlights the street trees I indicated earlier. There'll be some variation in the street trees. It'll all be in the city's right of way, and engineering said that they're fine with that and willing to work with that, given there's no room with utilities and the easement for the gas pipeline. And then lastly, I wanted to indicate, the architecture here we are looking at carefully. One of the council members would like to see more details, and we're going to work on that for city council level and discuss that with the council members. In this case, the center has already started construction, so we would envision Area A to kind of blend in with the existing design for Fresh Market and LA Fitness. And then they've provided some details of what Bank of America is looking at for a limestone feature with some we're going to look at some brown material, most likely brick or some other kind of ephes that will match the existing colors of the center. So with that, staff's offering any questions. Again, we've been working with the applicant for about 4 months and believe that this has come a long way. We've worked really hard with them to meet their goal and vision for the center as well as the city's goal of the Fishers 2040 plan. Do you have any questions of staff?
We're happy to answer any questions or get any direction that you might care to give us toward the council, but we've, Ken and Max have worked closely with Tony and his staff for the last at least 4 months. I think we've come up with a plan that's really mutually workable, and we'll plan to get with Rich or any other members of the committee that want to participate on architectural input as early as Rich gets back, and would plan to have more specific architectural renderings and plans to deliver for City Council second reading on June 17th, I believe.
And I'd like to just add, I'm Ken Kern with Sunbeam Development. I just want to thank Tony for really, he and his staff have been very helpful in kind of leading us through this process and pointing to the right direction. And so it's been interesting, it's a difficult process, but a very good process, and I really do thank him for helping us out here.
One is more someone that way. I'm so tired of the working we need to pay this, and that's not your fault, it's our UDO fault. These bills are UDO. And everything was the same. And you guys did a great job on that. This is for us. Because I drove past the edge of the thing, and I was like, and that started off to be this He didn't do much more than that, okay? Well, I got a little bit out of it. We have a boardwalk around it, or whatever. There, marketplace, so, probably could choose it, not actually. So, I know we have a gathering spot, and we have things that can go there, but are we getting down enough that we're gonna get something of substance? We're gonna end up at that marketplace. We're gonna end up like the clock feature that was this apparently 20-foot tall, beautiful clock that I could see the time from here at 116 Million Road that doesn't work, I don't think, yet, and it's a pocket watch. Okay? It can't be working. So I'm very skeptical, and I'd like, by the time we reach council level, we have enough meat and potatoes and the gathering spot that if we go, we will build at least 3 of these things. If it's a gazebo, it's going to have to be this and this big and this whatever. If we do a clock feature, it's going to be this. Okay? Not, well, we're going to have a feature, we're going to have a gathering spot that could have these things, and we might have none of one of them in a bunch of parking spots. We get sort of a different developer, and it's not as sensitive as you guys. Okay? So, with that, I make a motion. Motion to recommend second. Motion and second. Friendly amendment with detailed examination of the elements of the water feature of the gathering spot. Second. Sir? All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed or abstained?
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
1715.
Good evening. For the record, my name is Dale Davis. I'm a planner with the City of Fishers. So the next item before you is the next in a series of UDO amendments. As we work through creating a new unified development ordinance, we're bringing our text amendments to you in kind of digestible chunks. So we're not looking at the whole UDO in a series of meetings and really having to digest the whole thing at once. So this next set addresses our plating procedures. I won't go into detail on all of the changes, but I'll go through the most notable changes. One we've added is called the incremental plating process. This applies to non-residential development. You saw this recently with the yard. Previously, when somebody brought in a commercial or industrial type development, we might see a street and something that says Block A, 175 acres, and that's all the detail we would see. Well, that doesn't really meet what the true intent of a primary plat is. We notice it to the neighbors, but they really don't have an idea of what they're about to get. So this change will bring it back into line with really giving the neighbors a little bit more of an idea of what's going on. So we will establish a maximum number of lots. We'll lay out the rough layout of how those lots could work. But with the understanding that, you know, if they sell 5 acres to this guy and 3 acres to this guy, those lot lines might shift around a little bit, but we'll still have a maximum. We'll still know what the most that should be fit onto this property will be. So in the end, we'll have a little bit better planned development. The neighbors will have a better understanding of what this primary plat is really serving, and the development community will still have some of that flexibility they're looking for. Another notable addition is a minor plating process. This is 116th out past Oleo. You'll notice a couple residential developments where just a couple lots have been split. No right-of-way was created, no right-of-way was vacated. It's just very simple plating. But for these to go forward, as you know, we have to go through the full primary, the full secondary, the same process we do to create a couple hundred home subdivision. This provides an alternative path for them that takes away a lot of the extra requirements, extra steps they need to do, and still stay in line with state requirements. The one other notable addition is we've started looking at a plat committee again. So these amendments go through the plat committee language that's already in the code, and really fine tune it because it hasn't been used since the code was created. So it's ready for us to take those initial steps of creating the plat committee. So a lot of these plats, like the primaries that meet, all the requirements of the state code and our code, don't always have to come up before you guys. So with that, happy to answer any questions. We do need a hearing on this one. Thank you.
Our next agenda item does not require a public hearing due to the fact that 100% of the affected property owners are.
Just for clarification, the code requires two different types of plat vacation procedures, one if all owners in the plat agree and one if they don't. This falls under the one where all the owners agree, and so really this is more of a notice to the board, but you do still have to give approval.
Good evening again for the last time, hopefully. This item is the yard development. I'm not sure if is the projection cam up there now. So the Springdale Estates is being redeveloped as the yard. This is one of the last stages in getting that project moving forward. There's an existing secondary plat and covenants on the property. There's 100% ownership to remove that covenant, so there's no public hearing required. And so staff's just here to let the Planning Commission know that under state law you have to make an action to vacate the secondary plat as well as the covenants, and staff's recommending approval.
Motion approved. Second. Favor signify by saying aye. Any other business?
Just a reminder, the next meeting is going to be the second week of July with 4th of July on Tuesday.
Thanks, Tony.
Thank you.